The hostess grabbed the edge of the tablecloth and pulled. Plates, glasses, silverware, everything crashed to the floor right in front of a 7-year-old girl on her birthday. Marcus Thompson didn't flinch. He looked the woman dead in the eyes, his daughter trembling behind him, and said 4 words that made a billionaire heiress drop her fork across the room. "She's with me." But what happened next, what Victoria Ashford did when she stood up from that table, nobody in that restaurant saw coming. Not even Marcus. Before we continue, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story travels. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and tap that bell. You don't want to miss what's coming. Marcus Thompson's hands were still shaking when he turned off the engine. He sat there in the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel of his 2009 Camry, staring at the front entrance of La Lumiere through a windshield that had a crack running from one corner to the other. The valet was already looking at him. 2 of them, actually. Standing under the gold awning, watching his car like it had pulled into the wrong zip code. "Daddy?" Lily's voice came from the back seat. Small, careful. The way she always sounded when she could feel something was wrong, but didn't want to make it worse. "Yeah, sweetheart? Are we going in?" Marcus looked at the rearview mirror. His daughter was sitting up straight, hands folded on her lap, wearing the blue dress her Aunt Denise had mailed from Ohio 2 weeks ago. She'd picked it out herself from a catalog. It wasn't expensive. The fabric was thin, and the stitching along the hem was already coming loose. But Lily had put it on that morning like it was made of gold. She'd also clipped her hair back with that pink barrette, the one that never stayed in place, the one her mother used to wear. Marcus swallowed hard. "Yeah," he said, "we're going in." He got out first, walked around the car, and opened her door. She stepped out carefully, holding the bottom of her dress so it wouldn't wrinkle. "Daddy, do I look okay?" He knelt down right there in the parking lot. A man in a $40 jacket, kneeling on asphalt outside a restaurant, where the cheapest appetizer probably cost more than their electric bill. "You look beautiful, Lily, just like your mom." She smiled. And that smile, God, that smile. It was the only reason Marcus was here at all. This morning, while eating cereal at their kitchen table, the one with a wobbly leg he kept meaning to fix, Lily had looked up at him and said, "Daddy, can we go somewhere fancy today? Just once, like in the movies." She'd turned 7 years old. 7 years since she came into this world screaming. 7 years since Marcus held her for the first time in a hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and hope. 4 years since Denise, his wife, sat in that same kitchen and told him she was sick. 3 years since he buried her on a Tuesday in April, while Lily stood beside him holding a stuffed rabbit and asking when Mommy was coming home. 3 years. 3 years of learning how to braid hair from YouTube videos at midnight. 3 years of packing school lunches with handwritten notes that said, "You're my sunshine," because that's what Denise used to say every morning. 3 years of working double shifts at the warehouse, coming home smelling like cardboard and sweat, and still reading bedtime stories in funny voices until Lily fell asleep. He couldn't give her much. He knew that. Their apartment had 1 bedroom. He slept on the couch. The heat didn't always work in January. But when his daughter asked him for one fancy dinner on her birthday, there wasn't a force on this earth that could have made him say no. So he made a reservation, online, 3 weeks in advance. Confirmed twice by email. La Lumiere, French for the light. He'd read every review. He'd checked the dress code. He'd even gone to Goodwill and found a blazer that almost fit. The sleeves were a little long, and one of the buttons was loose, but it was dark navy, and it looked respectable. He'd polished his shoes in the kitchen sink the night before. He was ready, or at least he thought he was. They walked toward the entrance. Marcus held Lily's hand. The valets watched them approach. One of them nudged the other. Marcus kept walking. The front door was heavy, dark wood with a brass handle. Marcus pulled it open and held it for Lily. She stepped inside and immediately grabbed his hand tighter. The lobby was quiet. Soft music played from somewhere invisible. The floor was marble. A crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling, throwing tiny rainbows across the walls. Everything smelled like fresh flowers and old money. A woman stood behind a podium. Tall, blonde, mid-30s. Her smile appeared the moment the door opened. Practiced. Automatic. The kind of smile that welcomed people who belonged. Then she saw Marcus. The smile didn't disappear. It changed. It tightened at the corners. Her eyes dropped to his shoes, moved to his jacket, then shifted to Lily. The whole thing took maybe 2 seconds, but Marcus felt every one of them. "Good evening," she said. "Welcome to La Lumiere. Do you have a reservation?" Marcus Thompson, 7 o'clock. She looked at her screen. Her finger moved down the list. She paused. "Thompson," she repeated. She said it the way people repeat something they don't quite believe. "That's right." "For two?" "For two." She picked up 2 menus and stepped out from behind the podium. "Follow me." They walked through the main dining room. Marcus counted the tables. Maybe 30, most of them occupied. Men in tailored suits, women in silk dresses, wine glasses that looked like they cost more than his car payment. Every table had candles, fresh flowers, and silverware arranged like a geometry problem. People noticed them. Not everyone, but enough. A woman in a red dress paused mid-sentence to watch them pass. A man at the bar turned his head. A couple near the window exchanged a look. Brief, subtle, but Marcus caught it. He'd been catching looks like that his whole life. The hostess led them to a table near the center of the room. Marcus pulled out Lily's chair for her. She climbed up and sat with her hands in her lap, eyes wide. "Daddy," she whispered, "everything is so shiny." "It is, isn't it?" "Is this where rich people eat?" Marcus smiled. "Tonight, this is where we eat." A server appeared. Young guy, maybe 25. He looked at Marcus, then at the hostess, then back at Marcus. "Good evening, sir. Can I start you off with something to drink? Water for both of us, please. And do you have a kids menu?" The server blinked. "We don't have a children's menu, sir, but I can recommend something from our appetizer selection." "That's fine. We'll take a look." The server nodded and left. Marcus opened the menu, and his stomach dropped. There were no prices. He'd read about this in the reviews. No prices meant everything was expensive. He'd saved $400 for tonight. He prayed it would be enough. "Daddy, what's a tartare?" "Tartare. It's a fancy way of saying chopped up." "Chopped up what?" "Usually fish or meat." Lily scrunched her nose. "I just want chicken fingers." Marcus laughed, really laughed, and for a second, everything felt okay. His daughter was here. She was smiling. The tablecloth was white, and the glasses were crystal, and for one night, just one night, they were in the light. That's when he noticed the woman. She was sitting 3 tables away, alone. She wore a cream-colored dress that looked like it was made specifically for her body. Her hair was pulled back in a low chignon. A thin gold necklace rested against her collarbone. She had the kind of posture that said boarding school, finishing school, and a lifetime of being watched. Servers orbited her table like planets around a sun. One refilled her water glass when it was still half full. Another adjusted the flower arrangement. A third stood nearby, ready for the slightest gesture. She wasn't eating. She was sitting in front of a plate of food that probably cost $200 and staring at it like it owed her something. Lily leaned across the table. "Daddy," she whispered loudly, the way only children can whisper. "Is she a princess?" Marcus glanced over again. "Something like that, baby." "She looks sad." Marcus looked more carefully. Lily was right. Underneath the elegant clothes and the perfect posture, there was something hollow, something familiar. The look of someone sitting in a room full of people and feeling completely alone. He recognized it because he'd seen it in his own mirror. "Maybe she is," he said softly. The woman's name was Victoria Ashford. She was 32 years old, the only daughter of Richard Ashford, who owned Ashford Capital, one of the largest investment firms on the East Coast. Her net worth, according to the last Forbes list, was somewhere north of $3 billion. She sat on the boards of 4 charities. She'd been on the cover of Vogue twice. She had a penthouse in Manhattan, a house in the Hamptons, and an apartment in Paris she'd visited exactly once. And she was miserable. Tonight's dinner was supposed to be with her father. He'd called 2 hours ago to cancel. Something about a meeting in Washington. He sent his assistant to deliver a necklace. Cartier, emerald, probably $50,000, with a note that said, "Happy early birthday, sweetheart. Next time." There was always a next time. And next time never came. So Victoria sat alone at her table, surrounded by people who knew her name, but not her, wearing a new necklace that meant nothing, eating food she couldn't taste, wondering why a woman with everything felt like she had nothing at all. She heard Lily before she saw her. The little girl's laughter cut through the restaurant's careful silence like a bell. Victoria looked up. She saw a child in the simple blue dress, eyes bright, leaning across a table to talk to her father. And the father, this broad-shouldered black man in a blazer that didn't quite fit, was listening to her like she was the most important person in the world. Something tightened in Victoria's chest. She couldn't look away. Then everything changed. The server approached Marcus and Lily's table, carrying a small plate with a single scoop of chocolate mousse and a tiny candle. "A birthday surprise from the kitchen," he said with a slight smile. Lily's face lit up. She gasped. She clapped her hands together, and in that burst of pure, unfiltered joy, her elbow caught the edge of her spoon and sent it clattering to the marble floor. The sound ricocheted off the walls like a gunshot. Every head turned. Every conversation stopped. Marcus moved fast. He picked up the spoon. "I'm sorry," he said to the server. "She didn't mean—" But the hostess was already there. She appeared like she'd been waiting for this moment. She stood over their table, her arms crossed, her smile gone. "Sir," Marcus looked up. "I'm going to need to ask you to come with me." "Excuse me?" "This section is reserved for our premium clientele. I'm afraid there's been a seating error." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I made a reservation 3 weeks ago. I have the confirmation." "I understand, sir, but as you can see, the atmosphere here is—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Particular. We have a lovely area near the bar that might be more suitable." More suitable. Marcus had heard versions of that phrase his whole life. More suitable neighborhood, more suitable school, more suitable section of the restaurant. It always meant the same thing. You don't belong here. He looked at his daughter. Lily's candle was still burning on the mousse, but the light in her eyes had gone out. She was staring at the tablecloth, her shoulders pulled in tight, trying to make herself smaller. Marcus had seen that before, too. In the schoolyard, when another kid told her she couldn't play. At the grocery store, when a woman clutched her purse as they walked past. In 100 tiny moments where the world reminded his daughter that some people would always see her differently. "Sir," the hostess pressed, "if you could just—" "Daddy." Lily's voice was barely a whisper. Her lower lip trembled. "It's okay. We can go." Marcus felt something break inside his chest. Not anger. Something deeper. Something that had been building for 3 years. For 37 years. Every time someone looked at him and decided who he was before he said a word. He put his hand over Lily's. He squeezed gently. And then he looked at the hostess. "She's with me." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't stand up. He didn't make a scene. He said it the way a man says something he knows to be true. The way you'd say the sky is blue or the earth turns. Quiet. Absolute. Final. "She's with me, and we're not going anywhere." The hostess opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Across the room, Victoria Ashford's fork slipped from her fingers and hit the edge of her plate with a soft clink. She had heard every word. She'd watched the whole thing unfold. The spoon, the hostess, the little girl shrinking in her chair. And she'd seen something she hadn't seen in a long, long time. A man who didn't need money or status or a last name that opened doors. A man whose power came from something the people in this room couldn't buy. Love. Pure, unshakable, unbreakable love. Victoria pushed her chair back. The legs scraped against the marble. The sound made everyone within 20 feet turn and look. She stood up. And then she did something that no one in that restaurant expected. She walked directly to Marcus Thompson's table. The hostess saw her coming. Her face drained of color. "Miss Ashford, Victoria didn't look at her. She kept walking. Her heels clicked against the floor. The entire restaurant was watching now. Every diner, every server, every busboy. 30 tables of Cleveland's wealthiest people, silent, staring, waiting. She stopped at Marcus's table. Lily looked up at her with wide, wet eyes. Victoria pulled out the empty chair across from them. She looked at Marcus. "May I?" Marcus studied her face. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know her name or her net worth, or that her family practically owned half the city's real estate. He just saw a woman with kind eyes asking to sit down. "Please," he said. Victoria sat. She folded her hands on the table, and then she turned to the hostess, who was standing 3 feet away, frozen, looking like she might pass out. "They stay," Victoria said. "Right here, at this table, in this section. Miss Ashford, I know exactly what you were doing." Victoria's voice was calm, controlled, but there was steel underneath it. "And I want you to know that I saw it. Every person in this room saw it. And this man," she gestured to Marcus, "showed more class in the last 60 seconds than this establishment has shown all evening." The hostess's mouth opened and closed. She looked around for support. The manager, another server, anyone. Nobody moved. "Bring them a new menu," Victoria said, "and the 2015 Chateau Margaux for the table. The full bottle. Miss Ashford, that bottle is... I know what it costs. Bring it." The hostess turned and walked away so fast, her heels nearly slipped on the marble. Marcus sat very still. He looked at Victoria. She looked at him. And for a long moment, neither of them said anything. Then Lily spoke. "Are you really a princess?" Victoria blinked. Then she laughed. A real laugh. Not the polished kind she used at galas and fundraisers. This one came from somewhere deep. Somewhere she'd almost forgotten existed. "No, sweetheart," she said. "I'm definitely not a princess." "But you look like one." "That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in a very long time." Marcus cleared his throat. "I appreciate what you did. But you didn't have to—" "Yes," Victoria interrupted gently. "I did." She looked at Lily. The girl's shoulders had relaxed. The fear was fading from her eyes. The candle on her mousse was still burning.
"Is it your birthday?" Victoria asked.
Lily nodded.
"I'm 7. 7? That's a very important age. That's what my daddy said."
Victoria looked at Marcus. "Your daddy sounds like a smart man." Marcus felt heat behind his eyes. He blinked it away. "I just wanted her to have one good night," he said. His voice cracked on the last word. He didn't try to hide it. Victoria leaned forward slightly. "She already is," she said, "because she's with you." And right there, in the middle of a restaurant full of people, who measured worth in dollars and last names and the cut of a jacket, something shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet crack in the wall between two worlds that were never supposed to touch. The candle on Lily's mousse flickered. Marcus looked at his daughter. Lily looked at Victoria. And Victoria Ashford, billionaire, heiress, the loneliest woman in Cleveland, looked at the empty chair she'd just left at her own table and realized she didn't want to go back to it. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. The wine arrived before either of them was ready for it. A different server brought it, not the young one from before, but an older man with gray temples and careful hands. He set the bottle on the table like it was made of glass, uncorked it without a sound, and poured 2 glasses. He looked at Marcus, then at Victoria, and for just a moment, something passed across his face. Not judgment, something closer to respect. "The 2015 Chateau Margaux," he said quietly. "Enjoy." He left. Marcus stared at the glass. The wine was so dark it was almost black. He'd never had a bottle of wine that cost more than $12. He picked it up carefully, like it might shatter in his hand. Victoria lifted hers. "To Lily," she said, "and to turning 7. Lily giggled. "I can't drink wine, Daddy." "No, you cannot," Marcus said, and for the first time since they'd walked in, he smiled, a real smile. "But you can drink your water and pretend." Lily grabbed her water glass with both hands and held it up. "To me," she announced. Victoria clinked her glass against Lily's water. "To you." They drank. Marcus took a small sip, and his eyebrows went up. He didn't know anything about wine, but he knew this one tasted like it was made by people who cared deeply about what they were doing. It was smooth, warm, and it settled into his chest like a slow exhale. "Good?" Victoria asked. "I don't even know what to say about it." "That's usually what good wine does. It takes your words away." A silence fell between them. Not uncomfortable, but present. The kind of silence between two strangers who have just shared something intimate without meaning to, and now have to decide what comes next. Lily decided for them. "What's your name?" she asked Victoria, resting her chin on her hands. "Victoria." "That's a long name." "It is." "Can I call you Tori?" Victoria paused. No one had called her that since she was a child. Her mother used to, before the divorce. Before her mother moved to London and sent Christmas cards that arrived in January. Tori. It hit her somewhere soft. "Yes," she said. "I'd like that." "Tori, do you eat here a lot?" "More than I should." "Do you always eat alone?" Marcus reached across the table. "Lily, that's not—" "It's okay," Victoria said. She looked at Lily. "Yes, I usually eat alone." "That's sad." "Lily," Marcus said, more firmly this time. "No," Victoria said. "She's right. It is sad." She took another sip of wine. "But I'm not eating alone tonight, am I?" Lily shook her head proudly. "Nope, you're eating with us." The server returned to take their order. Marcus opened the menu again and felt the familiar wave of anxiety. No prices. He had $400 in his checking account. He'd already done the math 3 times in his head. "What looks good to you, baby?" he asked Lily. "I want the chicken, the one that says poulet." Marcus found it on the menu. Poulet rôti. He had no idea what it cost. "I'll have the same," he said, closing the menu quickly. Victoria ordered something in French without looking at the menu. When the server left, she turned to Marcus. You don't have to worry about tonight, she said, quietly, just between them. Marcus stiffened. I appreciate what you did back there. I really do. But I can pay for my daughter's dinner. I know you can. I don't need charity. That's not what I'm offering. Then what are you offering? Victoria set her glass down. She looked at him directly, not past him, not through him, not at his jacket or his shoes or any of the things the hostess had inventoried at the door. She looked at him. Company, she said. That's all. I was sitting over there alone, dreading every minute of tonight. And your daughter just invited me to join you. So I'm here. And wherever I sit, the bill follows. That's just how it works. It's not about you. It's about me not wanting to eat alone on a night when I really, really don't want to be alone. Marcus studied her face. He was good at reading people. You had to be when you managed a warehouse full of 40 men, half of whom didn't want to be there, and the other half of whom were looking for someone to blame. He could spot a lie the way most people spot a pothole. And right now, looking at Victoria Ashford, he didn't see a lie. He saw loneliness. The same kind he carried around in his chest every night after Lily went to sleep, and the apartment got quiet, and the only sound was the refrigerator humming, and his own breathing. All right, he said, but I'm leaving the tip. Victoria almost smiled. Deal. The food came. Lily's chicken was golden brown, sitting on a bed of something green that she poked suspiciously with her fork. What is this? She asked. Haricot vert, the server said. Lily looked at Marcus. Daddy? Green beans, baby. Fancy green beans. Why don't they just say green beans? Victoria laughed. Marcus laughed, and the server, to his credit, smiled. Lily ate her chicken with her fingers. Marcus started to correct her, then stopped. It was her birthday. Let her eat however she wanted. She was happy. That was enough. While Lily ate, Victoria turned to Marcus. Can I ask you something? Depends on what it is. What do you do for work? I'm a warehouse supervisor, Curtis Industrial Supply, over on East 71st. He said it the way he always said it, plainly, without apology, but bracing slightly for the reaction. People in places like this didn't talk to warehouse supervisors. They talked to lawyers and fund managers and people who had opinions about wine, but Victoria just nodded. How long? 11 years. Started on the floor loading trucks. Worked my way up. That's a long time. It's a good job. Steady. Benefits. I can pick Lily up from school most days by 4. He paused. That matters more than anything on my resume. Victoria looked at Lily, who was now trying to balance a green bean on her nose. She's incredible. She's everything. Her mother? The question hung in the air. Marcus didn't answer right away. He picked up his wine glass, held it, put it back down. Denise, he said. Passed 3 years ago. Cancer. Ovarian. By the time they caught it, he stopped, swallowed. She was gone in 4 months. Victoria's hand moved on the table, just slightly, like she wanted to reach for him, but stopped herself. I'm sorry. She was the one who was good at all of this, Marcus said. The braiding, the birthday parties, the making everything feel special, even when we had nothing. She could turn a Tuesday night into an event with a box of mac and cheese and some candles. He looked at Lily. I'm just trying to keep up. You're doing more than keeping up. You don't know that. I watched you pick up that spoon, Victoria said. I watched you look at that woman and not raise your voice. I watched your daughter reach for your hand because you're the safest person she knows. I don't need to know anything else. Marcus blinked. Hard. He looked away, toward the window, where the parking lot lights were reflecting off the wet asphalt. It had started to rain at some point. He hadn't noticed. I made a promise, he said, still looking at the window. At the hospital, last night. Denise could barely talk. She grabbed my hand. She had no strength left, but she grabbed it so hard I had bruises for a week. His voice dropped. She said, "Don't let her forget that she's worth something, Marcus. Don't you ever let her forget." He turned back to Victoria. His eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. "That's why we're here tonight. Not for the food. Not for the fancy tablecloth. I'm here so my daughter knows that she can walk into any room in this world and belong there. Because she does. She belongs everywhere." Victoria didn't say anything for a long time. She just sat there, holding her wine glass, looking at this man in his Goodwill blazer, with his cracked windshield and his $400 checking account, and she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Shame. Not for him, for herself. For every dinner she'd sat through without tasting the food. For every gala where she'd smiled for cameras and felt nothing. For every morning she'd woken up in a penthouse and wished she hadn't woken up at all. This man had lost his wife. He worked in a warehouse. He drove a car with a cracked windshield. And he was more alive, more present, more full of purpose than anyone she'd ever met. "Victoria?" Marcus said. She realized she'd been quiet for too long. "Sorry, I was just thinking." "About what?" "About how long it's been since anyone said something real to me." Marcus tilted his head. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she set her glass down, "I sit in rooms like this 3-4 times a week. Dinners, fundraisers, board meetings, and everyone talks. They talk constantly, but no one says anything. It's all just noise. Polished, expensive noise." She looked at him. "You just told me about your wife's last words. In a restaurant. To a stranger. Do you know how rare that is?" "I don't usually talk about it." "Then why did you?" Marcus thought about that. "Because you asked like you actually wanted to know." Victoria felt the back of her throat tighten. She reached for her wine, took a long sip, set it down. "My father was supposed to be here tonight," she said. "What happened?" "Washington. There's always Washington. Or Hong Kong. Or a deal closing somewhere that's more important than showing up." She turned her glass slowly on the table. "He sent a necklace. Cartier. Emerald. Probably $50,000. That's a lot of money." "It's a lot of nothing." She touched the necklace at her throat. "You know what I wanted? I wanted him to sit across from me and eat dinner, and ask me how I'm doing. That's it. Just ask. He hasn't asked me that in—" She stopped. Counted. "I don't actually remember the last time." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I have everything, right? That's what people say. Victoria Ashford has everything." She laughed, but there was no warmth in it. $3 billion and I can't get my own father to show up for dinner." "Daddy!" Lily interrupted suddenly, holding up her plate. "I ate all my green beans, the fancy ones." Marcus grinned. "All of them?" "Every single one, even the squishy one." "I'm proud of you, baby." "Can I have dessert now?" Marcus looked at his plate. He'd barely touched his food. He'd been so deep in conversation, he'd forgotten to eat. "Let me finish my dinner first, okay?" "Okay, but hurry." Marcus shook his head and turned back to Victoria. "Sorry, she's—" "Don't apologize for her," Victoria said. "Please. She's the best part of this entire evening." Marcus picked up his fork and took a bite. The chicken was the best thing he'd ever tasted. He chewed slowly, savoring it, knowing he might never eat anything like this again. "Can I tell you something?" Victoria said. "Sure." "When that hostess came to your table, when she tried to move you, I almost didn't do anything." Marcus looked at her. "I saw what was happening. I knew it was wrong, and my first instinct—" She paused. "My first instinct was to look away. That's what I've been trained to do my entire life. Don't make a scene. Don't get involved. Stay in your lane. Protect the brand." She said those last three words with a bitterness that surprised even her. I almost looked away, and then your daughter said,
"It's okay, Daddy. We can go," Marcus finished.
"Yes." Victoria's voice was barely above a whisper. And I thought, no, it is not okay. It is absolutely not okay. Because that little girl just learned that someone can look at her and decide she doesn't belong, and the world will just let it happen. And I was about to be one of the people who let it happen. She straightened in her chair. So I stood up, and honestly, my legs were shaking. My hands were shaking. I have sat across from senators and CEOs and people who could ruin my family's name with a phone call, and none of them made me as nervous as walking over to this table. Why? Because I didn't know if you'd want me here. I didn't know if you'd see me as another rich person trying to play savior. I didn't know if I'd make it worse. Marcus put his fork down. You didn't make it worse. I couldn't have lived with myself if I'd stayed in that chair. Then I'm glad you got up. They looked at each other, two people from opposite ends of the earth, sitting at the same table, holding the same silence. And in that silence, something was forming. Not romance, not yet. Something more fragile than that, more important. Recognition. The recognition that loneliness sounds the same, whether you're in a one-bedroom apartment or a Manhattan penthouse. That grief doesn't check your bank balance. That the need to be seen, truly, fully seen, lives in every human being, regardless of what they carry in their wallet or what name is printed on their credit card. Lily yawned. Marcus looked at his watch. 9:15, past her bedtime. Getting sleepy, sweetheart? No, Lily said, her eyes already drooping. I'm wide awake. Sure you are. Tori? Victoria leaned forward. Yes, honey? Will you be here when I wake up? The question was innocent, a 7-year-old's logic. If I fall asleep, the nice lady might disappear. But it hit Victoria like a truck. Will you be here when I wake up? When was the last time anyone had wanted her to stay? I'll be right here, Victoria said. And she meant it, in a way she couldn't fully explain, even to herself. Lily nodded, satisfied. She leaned against her father's arm and closed her eyes. Within 2 minutes, her breathing was slow and steady. One hand rested on the table next to her empty plate. The pink barrette had finally slipped loose, hanging by a single strand of hair. Marcus gently pulled it free and slipped it into his jacket pocket. The same jacket, with the loose buttons and the slightly long sleeves. The same pocket where he kept a folded photo of Denise that he touched every morning like a prayer. Victoria watched him do it and felt something crack open in her chest that she'd been holding shut for a very long time. Marcus. Yeah? Thank you for letting me sit here. He looked at his sleeping daughter, then at Victoria. Thank you for standing up. Outside, the rain picked up. It drummed against the windows of La Lumiere, streaking the glass, turning the streetlights into long, golden smears. Inside, the restaurant hummed along. Other tables, other conversations, other lives. But at this one table, in the center of the room, something had already changed. Two people who shouldn't have met had met. A man who had nothing but love had given a woman who had everything the one thing money couldn't buy. And a 7-year-old girl slept peacefully between them, her birthday wish already granted, even if she didn't know it yet. The candle on her mousse had burned all the way down, but the light it left behind was just getting started. Marcus carried Lily to the car. She was dead weight against his shoulder, her arms hanging loose, her breath warm against his neck. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but the parking lot was slick, and he walked carefully, one hand under her legs, the other cradling her back. Victoria walked beside him, holding her clutch over her head, her heels clicking against the wet asphalt. The valet had already brought Marcus's car around. The same valet who'd stared at him 2 hours ago was now holding the door open, like Marcus was the president. "Thank you," Marcus said. The valet nodded quickly. "Have a good night, sir." Marcus eased Lily into the back seat, buckled her seatbelt, and tucked his jacket around her like a blanket. She stirred but didn't wake. He closed the door gently and turned around. Victoria was standing 3 feet away, arms crossed against the cold, rain dotting her shoulders. She looked different out here. Smaller, without the chandelier and the marble and the servers circling her like satellites. She looked like what she actually was. A 32-year-old woman standing alone in a parking lot, with nowhere she wanted to go. "You okay?" Marcus asked. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." She laughed. "You're very direct." "Warehouse supervisor. We don't do subtle." Victoria uncrossed her arms. She looked at the restaurant behind them, its warm light spilling through the windows. "I don't want to go back in there." "Then don't." "My car is being brought around. My driver. He'll take me back to the hotel." She paused. "I have a suite at the Ritz. 1,200 square feet. A view of the lake. A fruit basket that nobody asked for." She looked at Marcus. "And absolutely no one waiting for me." Marcus leaned against his car. The metal was cold through his shirt. "When Denise first died," he said, "I used to dread nighttime. Lily would go to sleep, and the apartment would get so quiet I could hear the clock in the kitchen. Tick, 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 like it was counting down to something. I used to turn the TV on just so there was another voice in the room. What changed? Nothing. I just got used to it. That's not the same as it getting better." "No," he said, "it's not." A black town car pulled into the lot and stopped near the entrance. The driver stepped out, opened the rear door, and stood waiting. Victoria glanced at it. "That's me." "Nice ride." "It's a cage with leather seats." Marcus pushed off the car. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a pen, the cheap kind, the ones he kept clipped to his work badge. He looked around for something to write on, then grabbed a napkin from his jacket pocket, the one he'd taken from the table. He wrote his number, handed it to her. "This isn't," he started. "I know what it isn't," Victoria said. "I'm just saying, if you ever need someone to talk to, someone who'll actually answer when you ask how they're doing." Victoria took the napkin. She looked at the numbers written in uneven blue ink. Her fingers were trembling, and it wasn't from the cold. "Marcus?" "Yeah?" "That hostess in there. What she did to you and Lily. Does that happen a lot?" He didn't answer right away. He looked at the ground, at the rain collecting in the cracks of the asphalt, at his own reflection broken up in the water. "Yeah," he said. "It happens a lot." "How do you handle it?" "Same way I handled it tonight. I stay calm. I stay steady. I don't give them what they want." "And what do they want?" "They want me to prove them right. They want me to get loud, get angry, make a scene, so they can point and say, 'See, that's why we asked him to leave.' So I don't. I just stand there. I say what's true, and I let them deal with it." Victoria shook her head slowly. "That takes more strength than most people will ever understand." "It's not strength. It's survival. There's a difference." "What's the difference?" "Strength is a choice. Survival is what you do when you don't have one." The driver cleared his throat. Victoria ignored him. "I need to tell you something," she said. Marcus waited. "When I was 8 years old, my father took me to a restaurant in Manhattan. Not like this one. Bigger, louder. There was a family at the table next to us. A black couple with 2 kids. The little girl was about my age. She was wearing a yellow dress and she was laughing. This big, full, beautiful laugh. And I remember wanting to talk to her. I remember pulling on my father's sleeve and saying, 'Can I go say hi?'" She stopped. Her jaw tightened. "What did he say?" Marcus asked. He said, "Those aren't our kind of people, Victoria." And then he went back to his steak. Marcus said nothing. "I was 8, Victoria continued. I didn't understand what he meant, but I felt it. I felt the wall go up. And I spent the rest of that dinner staring at that little girl, wanting to wave at her, and not doing it, because my father told me not to." Her voice cracked. She pressed her lips together, steadied herself. "I've spent my whole life sitting in restaurants like this, on the right side of that wall. And tonight is the first time I walked through it." She looked at Marcus. "And you know what I found on the other side?" "What?" "A man who's a better person than anyone I've ever known. And the little girl who called me Tori." Marcus felt the burn behind his eyes again. He blinked hard. "Victoria, I should go," she said quickly. She took a step toward the town car, then stopped, turned back. "The card I mentioned earlier, inside. I left it on the table." "I saw it. Did you take it?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I'm not your project, and Lily's not your cause." The words landed hard. Victoria flinched, but Marcus's face wasn't angry. It was honest. "I know that," she said quietly. "Do you?" "Yes." She held up the napkin with his number. "This isn't a business card. This isn't a foundation or a fund or a grant with my family name on it. This is a phone number on a napkin." She folded it carefully and put it in her clutch. "And it means more to me than anything in that restaurant." Marcus nodded slowly. "Good night, Victoria." "Good night, Marcus." She walked to the town car. The driver held the door. She got in. The door closed. And through the tinted window, Marcus could see her press the napkin against her chest, like she was holding something precious. The town car pulled away. Marcus stood alone in the parking lot for a long moment. Rain on his face, cold air in his lungs, his daughter asleep in the back seat. He got in the car, turned the key. The engine coughed twice before catching. He pulled out of the lot and turned onto East 9th Street, heading home. In the rearview mirror, Lily slept. The pink beret was in his pocket. The jacket he'd covered her with was the same one the hostess had judged him for wearing. The drive home took 20 minutes. He parked in front of their building, a 3-story brick walk-up on a street where half the streetlights were out. He carried Lily upstairs, unlocked the door with one hand, and laid her on her bed. He pulled off her shoes, pulled the blanket up to her chin, and sat on the edge of her mattress. "Happy birthday, baby girl," he whispered. Lily stirred. "Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart. I'm here." "Tonight was the best night ever." His throat tightened. "Yeah, it was." "Daddy?" "Hmm?" "Tori was sad." Marcus paused. "What makes you say that?" "Her eyes. They were smiling, but her eyes were sad. Like when you look at Mommy's picture." 7 years old. 7 years old, and she could read people better than most adults. She got that from Denise. "You might be right," Marcus said. "Can we see her again?" "I don't know, baby. She lives in a different world than we do." "But she sat at our table." Marcus smoothed her hair back. "Yeah, she did. So maybe our world and her world aren't that different." He kissed her forehead. "Go to sleep, Lily." "Okay. Love you, Daddy." "Love you more." "Love you most." It was their thing. Every night since Denise died. Love you more, love you most. 3 rounds, same order, never skipped. It was the closest thing Marcus had to a prayer. He closed her door halfway. She liked it halfway, not all the way, because all the way was too dark, and all the way open let in too much light from the hallway, and walked to the kitchen. He sat at the table with the wobbly leg. The cereal bowls from that morning were still in the sink. The countertop had a burn mark from a pot he'd forgotten about last month. The fridge hummed its low, constant hum. He pulled out his phone. No messages, no missed calls. He looked at his bank app. $387.42. The dinner hadn't hit yet. When it did, he stopped himself. Victoria had paid. He hadn't wanted her to, but she had, which meant his $387.42 was still intact, which meant he could pay the electric bill on time this month, which meant one less thing to worry about. He hated that it mattered. He hated that a stranger's generosity was the difference between keeping the lights on and making a choice between electricity and groceries. But that was his life. That had been his life for 3 years. He put the phone down, reached into his pocket, pulled out the folded photo of Denise. She was laughing in the picture, sitting on the hood of that same Camry, back when the windshield was whole, wearing a sundress and holding a baby Lily on her lap. Summer, 2019. Before the diagnosis. Before everything. "I took her somewhere fancy, Dee," he said to the photo. "Just like you would have." He sat there for a long time, holding the photo, listening to the refrigerator, letting the silence do what silence does at midnight when you're the only adult in a one-bedroom apartment and the person you want to talk to most has been gone for 3 years. Across town, Victoria Ashford sat in the back of her town car and watched Cleveland slide past through tinted glass. The driver had tried to make small talk. She'd asked him to stop. She held the napkin in her lap. Marcus's number, written in cheap blue ink that was already starting to smear from the rain. Her phone buzzed. She looked at it. A text from her father's assistant. "Your father sends his love. He'll try to make brunch on Sunday." Try. He'll try. She turned the phone face down on the seat. The town car pulled up to the Ritz-Carlton. The doorman opened her door. The lobby was warm and polished and empty. She walked to the elevator, pressed 18, and rode up alone. Her suite was exactly as she'd left it. The fruit basket sat on the marble counter, untouched. The view of Lake Erie stretched out beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, dark water meeting dark sky. The king-sized bed was turned down. A chocolate sat on the pillow. Victoria dropped her clutch on the table, kicked off her heels, walked to the window and pressed her forehead against the cold glass. She thought about Lily, falling asleep against Marcus's shoulder. She thought about the way he'd buckled her seatbelt so carefully, like she was made of something irreplaceable. She thought about his voice when he said, "She's with me." No anger, no performance, just truth. She thought about her father's necklace, still sitting heavy against her collarbone. $50,000 of guilt hanging around her neck. She unclasped it, held it in her palm. The emerald caught the light from the lamp. Cold, green, perfect. She set it on the nightstand, next to the chocolate she wouldn't eat. Then she took the napkin out of her clutch, smoothed it on the desk, picked up her phone. She typed the number in, started a text, stopped, deleted it, started again, stopped, stared at the blank message field for a full minute. What do you say to a man who just cracked your world open without even trying? She typed 3 words, stared at them, hit send before she could change her mind. "Thank you, Marcus." She put the phone down and walked to the bathroom, turned on the shower, stood under the water for 20 minutes without moving. The mascara ran down her cheeks, and she let it, because for once, the tears underneath were real. Back in the apartment on East 71st, Marcus's phone buzzed on the kitchen table. He picked it up. Unknown number. 3 words. "Thank you, Marcus." He stared at it. Then he typed back, "For what?" The reply came 30 seconds later. For not looking away. Marcus read it twice. 3 times. He set the phone down. Picked up Denise's photo. Looked at her laughing face.
I think I met someone, Dee, he said quietly. Not like that. Just someone who might understand. The apartment was quiet. The refrigerator hummed. The clock in the kitchen ticked. But for the first time in 3 years, the silence didn't feel like it was counting down. It felt like it was counting up. Toward something. Marcus put Denise's photo back in his pocket, turned off the kitchen light, and lay down on the couch. He pulled the thin blanket up to his chest. He closed his eyes. And for the first time in 1,000 nights, he fell asleep without the television on. 3 days passed before Victoria called. Marcus was at work when his phone rang. He was standing on the warehouse floor, clipboard in hand, checking inventory against a shipment that had come in short. Again. The forklift was beeping. 2 of his guys were arguing about overtime, and the loading dock smelled like diesel and cardboard. He almost didn't answer. Unknown number. He usually let those go to voicemail, but something made him pick up. Marcus? It's Victoria. He stepped away from the noise, pressing the phone against his ear. Hey, is this a bad time? I'm at work. I can call back. No, it's fine. What's up? A pause. He could hear her breathing. Then, I don't really know why I'm calling. Marcus leaned against a stack of pallets. Okay. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? Little bit. She laughed. That same real laugh from the restaurant. I've been sitting in my hotel room for 3 days. I've had 14 meetings, 2 conference calls, and a dinner with the mayor. And the only conversation I can't stop thinking about is the one I had with a warehouse supervisor and his 7-year-old daughter. Marcus switched the phone to his other ear. How's the fruit basket? Still untouched. That's a crime. I know. Another pause. Longer this time. Marcus could hear the warehouse behind him. The beeping, the shouting, the clang of metal on metal. And on the other end of the line, he could hear nothing. Just Victoria's breathing, and whatever kind of silence fills a 1,200-square-foot suite at the Ritz-Carlton. Marcus, I want to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. I don't know how to be anything else. That night at the restaurant, when the hostess came to your table, was it because you're black? Marcus closed his eyes. He rubbed the bridge of his nose with his thumb. You already know the answer to that. I want to hear you say it. Yeah, he said. It was because I'm black, and because my jacket was from Goodwill, and because my daughter was loud and happy and 7 years old in a room where children aren't supposed to exist unless they're sitting quietly with a trust fund. Did you think about filing a complaint? To who? The manager who was standing 10 feet away and didn't say a word? The other diners who watched it happen and went back to their steak? To me, my family's foundation. We have a... Victoria. She stopped. I appreciate you. I mean that. But I don't need you to fix this. This isn't something you fix with a foundation, or a press release, or a donation with your name on it. This is Tuesday for me. This is every restaurant, every store, every school meeting where I'm the only black dad in the room, and someone looks at me like I wandered in by accident. That's not okay. No, it's not. But it's real. And I've been dealing with it for 37 years. I know how to carry it. You shouldn't have to. A lot of things shouldn't be that are. Victoria was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. I don't know how to do this. Do what? This. Whatever this is. I've never had a conversation like this in my life. Everyone I know tells me what I want to hear. They agree with me. They smile at me. They tell me I'm making a difference because I wrote a check. And none of it
has ever felt as real as sitting at that table with you and your daughter, eating chicken with her fingers. Marcus smiled. He couldn't help it. She does that at home, too. Marcus, I'm leaving Cleveland on Friday. Something shifted in his chest. He didn't expect it. He barely knew this woman. They'd shared one dinner and a few text messages. But the thought of her leaving landed heavier than it should have. Where are you going? Back to New York, then London next week, then Singapore. My father has me on a schedule that looks like an airline route map. Sounds exhausting. It's not exhausting. Exhausting would mean I feel something. It's just empty. I go from city to city and room to room, and nothing changes except the view from the window. So change it. It's not that simple. Why not? Because I'm Victoria Ashford. I don't get to just change things. I have a board. I have shareholders. I have a family legacy that's been running for 4 generations. I can't just... I didn't ask about your board, Marcus said. I asked about you. Silence. When's the last time you did something because you wanted to? He asked. Not because your father scheduled it. Not because a PR team approved it. Just because you, Victoria, the person, wanted to. Tuesday night, she said, when I stood up from that table. And how did it feel? Terrifying. And? Like the first real thing I've done in years. Marcus heard his supervisor calling his name from across the warehouse. He had maybe 2 more minutes. Victoria, I gotta get back to work. I know. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Listen, I'm off Saturday. Lily has a soccer game at 10. Lincoln Park, the one on West 38th. It's nothing fancy. Folding chairs, orange slices at halftime, kids running in the wrong direction. Are you inviting me to a soccer game? I'm telling you where I'll be. What you do with that information is up to you. Victoria laughed again, softer this time. Marcus Thompson. Yeah? You're unlike anyone I've ever met. That's because you've been meeting the wrong people. He hung up, slid the phone into his pocket, walked back to the floor. His supervisor, Ray, a heavy-set man with a clipboard of his own, gave him a look. Personal call? Yeah. She cute? Marcus picked up his clipboard. Get back to work, Ray. Ray grinned. That means she's cute. Marcus shook his head and went back to counting boxes. But for the rest of his shift, he couldn't stop thinking about the sound of her voice when she said, terrifying. Because he knew exactly what she meant. That night at the restaurant, standing his ground, saying those 4 words, watching a billionaire walk across the room to sit at his table, had terrified him too. But he'd done it anyway. And so had she. That, he was learning, was the only thing that mattered. Saturday morning came cold and bright. Marcus had Lily at the field by 9:30. She was already in her jersey, number 7, green and white, 2 sizes too big, bouncing on her toes, kicking at the grass. Daddy, watch me! I've been practicing! She took a running start and kicked the ball. It rolled about 4 feet and stopped. That was amazing, Marcus said. I know. He set up their folding chair, singular, they only had one, and leaned against the chain-link fence. Other parents were arriving, moms with coffee thermoses, dads with camping chairs and coolers, a few grandparents bundled up like it was January. Marcus knew most of them by now. Lily had been on this team for 2 seasons. The parents were friendly enough, though Marcus had noticed early on that he was usually the last one included in conversations. Not out of malice, necessarily, just the quiet, unconscious sorting that happens when you're the only black father on the sideline. He didn't dwell on it. He was here for Lily. That was enough. The game started at 10. Lily played forward, which mostly meant she stood near the goal and waited for the ball to come to her. When it did, she kicked it with everything she had, usually in the wrong direction, and then clapped for herself regardless of the outcome. Marcus watched her with his arms crossed, grinning. Halfway through the first half, A black Escalade pulled into the gravel lot. Marcus noticed it immediately. So did every other parent. You didn't see a lot of Escalades at a 7-year-old soccer game in this part of Cleveland. The driver's door opened. A man in a suit got out, walked around, and opened the rear door. Victoria stepped out. She was wearing jeans, actual jeans, and a white sweater, and sneakers. Not designer, just regular sneakers, the kind you buy at Target. Her hair was down. No jewelry except a small pair of earrings. She looked nothing like the woman in the cream-colored dress at La Lumiere. She looked like a person. She saw Marcus and walked over. The other parents watched her cross the field. A few of the moms leaned toward each other, whispering. "You came," Marcus said. "You told me where you'd be." "I didn't think you'd actually show up." "Neither did I." She looked at the field. "Which one is Lily?" "Number 7, the one doing a cartwheel instead of playing." Victoria spotted her, and her face broke open into a smile. "She's doing a cartwheel." "She does that when she's bored. The ball hasn't come to her side yet." "Should we tell her on here?" "She'll figure it out. Give it about 30 seconds." It took 15. Lily glanced toward the sideline, saw Victoria, and let out a scream that stopped the game. "Tori!" She sprinted off the field. Her coach yelled after her. She didn't care. She ran straight to Victoria and threw her arms around her waist. "You came to my game!" "I did." "Did you see my cartwheel?" "I did. It was very impressive. Coach says I'm not supposed to do cartwheels during the game, but I think he's wrong." Marcus tapped her shoulder. "Lily, game. Go." "But Tori just got here." "And she'll be here when you're done. Go play." Lily looked at Victoria. "Don't leave." "I'm not going anywhere." Lily sprinted back onto the field. Her coach threw his hands up. Marcus shrugged at him apologetically. Victoria stood next to Marcus at the fence. For a few minutes, they just watched. Lily ran back and forth, her oversized jersey flapping, her ponytail bouncing. She was laughing even when she missed the ball. "She's so happy," Victoria said. "She's always happy, even when things are hard." She got that from her mom. "And what did she get from you?" Marcus thought about it. Stubbornness, and the ability to sleep anywhere. Victoria nudged him with her elbow. It was a small gesture, casual, the kind of thing friends do. But Marcus felt it like a current. One of the other parents approached. A woman named Karen, mid-40s, the team's unofficial organizer. She had a coffee thermos in one hand and a clipboard in the other. "Hi, Marcus. Who's your friend?" "This is Victoria. Victoria, this is Karen." Karen extended her hand. Victoria shook it. "Nice to meet you. Are you Marcus's friend?" Victoria said. "I'm a friend." Karen nodded, but her eyes were doing that thing. The quick scan, the mental calculation. Who is this woman? Why is she here? How does she know him? "Well, it's great to have more fans on the sideline," Karen said, and walked away. Marcus glanced at Victoria. "She's going to Google you." "Let her." "You okay with that?" "Marcus, I've been Googled by everyone I've ever met. At least this time, it's at a soccer game, and not a Senate hearing." He laughed. She laughed. And for a few minutes, standing at a chain-link fence on the Saturday morning in Cleveland, they were just two people watching a kid play soccer. Halftime came. Lily ran over, sweaty and grinning. "Tori, I almost scored." "I saw that. You were so close." "The ball went the wrong way." "It happens to the best players." "Really?" "Absolutely." Lily grabbed Victoria's hand and pulled her toward the team's bench. "Come meet my friends. You have to meet Jalen. He picks his nose, but he's really nice." Victoria looked at Marcus, eyes wide, half laughing. He waved her on. "Go, you've been summoned." He watched Victoria get dragged across the grass by a 7-year-old in an oversized jersey. He watched her kneel down to meet the other kids. shake their tiny hands, listen to a boy named Jalen explain his theory about why boogers exist. He watched her laugh, not the careful, measured laugh of a billionaire at a fundraiser, but the helpless, full-body laugh of a person who'd forgotten what it felt like to be surprised by joy. And he felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Not the vague, theoretical kind. Not the kind people talk about in greeting cards and graduation speeches. The real kind. The dangerous kind. The kind that starts in your chest and spreads outward and makes you think maybe, just maybe, the world isn't done with you yet. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out. A text from his sister-in-law, Aunt Denise. "How was Lily's birthday dinner? Send pics." He'd forgotten to take a single photo. He looked at the field. Lily was now sitting on Victoria's lap on the team bench, explaining the rules of soccer with the confidence of someone who did not know the rules of soccer. Victoria was listening with her full attention, nodding seriously. Marcus took a photo. Just one. His daughter in a billionaire's lap, both of them covered in grass stains, both of them laughing. He sent it to Denise with no caption. His phone rang 10 seconds later. "Marcus Allen Thompson, who is that woman?" "A friend." "That is not a friend. That is a supermodel. Is she single?" "Goodbye, Denise." "Don't you dare hang up on me. Marcus! Marcus!" He hung up, smiled, put the phone away. The second half started. Victoria came back to the fence and stood next to him. She had grass on her jeans and a smear of orange slice juice on her sleeve. She didn't seem to notice or care. "Jalen is something else," she said. "Wait until you meet his mother." "He told me he wants to be a dinosaur when he grows up. He's been saying that since he was 4. Nobody has the heart to tell him." They watched the game. Lily kicked the ball twice, once in the right direction, and celebrated both times like she'd won the World Cup. The final whistle blew. The kids swarmed the cooler. Parents started folding chairs. Victoria turned to Marcus. Her face had changed. The lightness from the game was fading. Something heavier was coming through. "I fly out in 4 hours," she said. Marcus felt it hit him. "I know." "I don't want to go." "I know that too." "This morning, this stupid, beautiful soccer game is the happiest I've been in as long as I can remember. And I'm about to get in that car and fly back to a life that makes me want to scream." "Then scream." "What?" "Scream, right here, right now. Nobody's going to judge you." "Marcus, I can't just—" "Why not? Lily does it all the time. Whenever she's frustrated, she just lets it out. Try it." Victoria stared at him. She looked around. Parents were leaving. Kids were climbing into minivans. The field was emptying. "I'm not going to scream in a park." "Suit yourself." She closed her eyes, took a breath. And then, so quiet it was almost a whisper, she let out a sound. Not a scream, more like a groan pulled up from somewhere deep, somewhere locked, somewhere she hadn't visited in years. Marcus didn't say anything. Victoria opened her eyes. They were wet. "I'm so tired," she said. "I'm so tired of being everything everyone expects me to be. I'm tired of dinners and boards and galas and smiling for cameras. I'm tired of being Victoria Ashford." Her voice broke on her own name. "I just want to be Tori. The woman who sits at the fence and watches soccer and has grass on her jeans. That's all I want." Marcus reached over and picked a blade of grass off her sleeve. "Then be her," he said. "It's not that simple." "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." "Is it? 3 days ago, you stood up in a restaurant full of people who would have let my daughter feel like she didn't matter. You didn't ask your board for permission. You didn't check with your PR team. You just stood up. That
was Tori. Victoria wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Today, you showed up at a soccer game in sneakers. You let a 7-year-old drag you across a field. You met Jalen the dinosaur. That was Tori. She laughed through the tears. So stop telling me it's not that simple. It is that simple. You just keep choosing the complicated version, because that's what you've been told you're supposed to do. Victoria looked at him for a long time. The wind picked up. Her hair blew across her face and she pushed it back. Marcus. Yeah? Will you answer when I call? I answered last time. Will you answer every time? He held her gaze. Every time. Lily appeared between them, sweaty and beaming, holding a half-eaten orange slice.
Daddy, we lost, but Coach said we all did amazing.
You did.
Tori, are you crying?
Victoria wiped her face quickly.
Just happy tears, honey.
Lily frowned.
Those are the weirdest kind of tears.
They really are. Lily looked at Marcus, then at Victoria, then back at Marcus. Something moved behind her eyes. Something beyond 7 years old.
Tori, you should come to our house for dinner. Daddy makes really good spaghetti. It's from a jar, but it's still good.
Marcus opened his mouth to intervene, but Victoria spoke first. I would love that, she said, but I have to go on a trip today.
Where?
New York, then London.
Is London far?
Very far. Lily thought about this. Then she stepped forward and hugged Victoria's legs. Hard. The kind of hug that says everything a 7-year-old doesn't have words for.
Come back, okay?
Lily said into the fabric of Victoria's jeans. Victoria put her hand on the back of Lily's head. She closed her eyes.
Okay,
she whispered. The Escalade was still idling in the lot. The driver stood patiently by the door. Victoria walked toward it, then stopped. She turned around one last time. Marcus stood at the fence with Lily on his hip. The sun was behind them. The soccer field was empty. The wind carried the smell of cut grass and autumn. Victoria raised her hand. Not a wave, just a hand, open, held up, like she was reaching for something she couldn't quite touch. Marcus raised his hand back. Then she got in the car, and the door closed, and the Escalade pulled out of the gravel lot and turned onto the road and disappeared. Lily rested her head on Marcus's shoulder.
Daddy?
Yeah, baby?
She'll come back.
How do you know?
Because she promised.
Marcus held his daughter and watched the empty road. The gravel settled. The field was quiet. Somewhere above them, a plane was already climbing. And Marcus thought about promises. About the ones that get broken and the ones that hold. About Denise's hand gripping his in that hospital bed. About 4 words in a restaurant. About a phone number on a napkin. He kissed Lily's forehead and carried her to the car. Yeah, he said quietly. I think she will. Part 5. She didn't come back for 6 weeks. Marcus didn't count the days on purpose. It just happened, the way you notice a chair is empty. The way you catch yourself looking at the door when it opens. The way your phone becomes something you check too often and then pretend you don't. They texted, every day, sometimes short, sometimes long. Victoria would send a photo of a London skyline at 2 a.m. and write, "Can't sleep. How was Lily's day?" Marcus would respond with a photo of Lily's homework, a drawing of a cat that looked like a potato, and write, "She says it's a horse." Victoria would type back a laughing emoji, and then, a minute later, "I miss you guys." She never said, "I miss you." Always you guys. Always plural. Always safe. Marcus noticed. He didn't push. The calls were longer. Late at night, after Lily was asleep, Marcus would lie on the couch with his phone pressed to his ear and talk to a woman who was sitting in a hotel room on the other side of the world. They talked about everything. About Denise, how she used to sing off-key in the shower, and how Marcus would stand outside the bathroom door and listen
because it was his favorite sound. About Victoria's mother, how she'd left when Victoria was 12, moved to London, and sent birthday cards with checks inside them, as if love could be deposited. About Lily's school, about Victoria's board meetings, about the weather in Singapore and the price of groceries in Cleveland, and whether Jalen had abandoned his dream of becoming a dinosaur. He hadn't. He'd added astronaut dinosaur to the list. One night, 3 weeks in, Victoria called at midnight. Marcus was half asleep.
"Hey," he said, his voice rough. "Did I wake you?" "No. Yeah, it's fine."
"I need to tell you something." He sat up.
"Okay."
"My father found out about the restaurant, about what I did."
"How?"
"Someone talked. A server, a diner, I don't know. It got back to one of his people. He called me this morning."
"What did he say?"
Victoria's voice tightened. "He said I embarrassed the family. He said I made a spectacle. He said, and this is a direct quote, 'You don't involve yourself with people like that, Victoria. It's beneath you.'" Marcus closed his eyes. People like that. He'd heard versions of it before. Different words, same meaning. Always the same meaning.
"What did you say back?"
he asked. Nothing. That's the worst part. I sat there on the phone and I said nothing. I froze. Like I was 8 years old again, sitting at that table in Manhattan, wanting to wave at that little girl, and keeping my hands in my lap because my father told me to.
"Victoria, I'm so angry at myself, Marcus. I stood up in a restaurant full of strangers, but I can't stand up to my own father. What does that make me?"
Human. It makes me a coward. No, it makes you someone who's been trained her whole life to obey a man who doesn't deserve the power he has over you. That's not cowardice. That's conditioning. And you're fighting it. You called me at midnight because you're fighting it. She was quiet for a long time. He could hear her breathing. He could hear something else, too. The faint, shaky quality that meant she was crying and trying not to.
"Marcus?"
"Yeah?"
"When you said, 'she's with me,' at the restaurant, were you scared?"
"Terrified. But you did it anyway." "I had to. Lily was watching. She learns from what I do, not what I say. If I'd backed down, if I'd let them move us, she would have learned that there are places where she doesn't belong. And I made a promise to her mother that I would never let her believe that." He took the phone off speaker and pressed it to his ear. "Say that again?" "I quit the board. The Ashford Foundation. My father's board. I resigned this morning." "Victoria, that's—" "My father is furious. He called me 4 times. His lawyer called twice. My brother, who hasn't spoken to me in 8 months, suddenly has opinions. Everyone has opinions." "Do you?" "Yes, my opinion is that I've spent 10 years sitting in boardrooms approving decisions I don't believe in. shaking hands with people I don't respect, and smiling for photographs that make me sick. And I'm done.
What are you going to do?
I don't know yet, but I know where I'm starting.
Where?
Cleveland. Marcus's heart did something it hadn't done in 3 years. It jumped. Actually jumped, like a physical thing, like a fist knocking on the inside of his ribs.
When?
My flight lands at 6.
Today?
Today. Marcus looked at Lily. She was trying to pick up the volcano, which was falling apart in her hands. Pieces of newspaper and glue were dropping onto the sidewalk.
Lily, he said.
Yeah, Daddy?
Tori's coming.
Lily dropped the volcano. It shattered on the concrete. She didn't care.
Tori's coming?
Yeah, baby.
When?
Tonight. Lily screamed, the kind of scream that made other parents turn their heads. She grabbed Marcus's hand and started pulling him toward the car.
We have to clean the apartment. We have to make spaghetti. The good spaghetti, Daddy, from the jar.
Marcus laughed. He couldn't help it. Standing on a sidewalk in Cleveland, with a broken volcano at his feet, and his daughter yanking his arm out of its socket, laughing into the phone while a former billionaire's daughter, he corrected himself, was somewhere 30,000 feet above the earth, flying toward them. I'll see you at 6, he said into the phone. Marcus? Yeah? I'm keeping the promise, he smiled. I know you are. They cleaned the apartment. Marcus did the dishes, wiped the counters, fixed the wobbly table leg with a folded piece of cardboard. Lily arranged her stuffed animals on her bed, for presentation purposes, and then changed her outfit 3 times before settling on the blue dress from her birthday. You don't have to wear that, Marcus said. I want to. Tori liked it. She said so. Marcus looked at his daughter in the dress that was already getting too small, the one her aunt had mailed from Ohio, the one she'd worn on the night everything changed. The pink barrette was in her hair. It still wouldn't stay in place. You look perfect, he said. I know, Daddy. He boiled the spaghetti, heated the sauce from the jar, set 3 places at the table. 3, not 2. It had been 2 for 3 years. The 3rd place felt like an event. The doorbell rang at 6:47. Lily got there first. She yanked the door open so hard it banged against the wall. Victoria stood in the hallway. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. She had a small suitcase behind her and a bag from a bakery in her hand. Her hair was down. No makeup. No jewelry. She looked exhausted and terrified, and more alive than Marcus had ever seen her. Lily threw herself at her. Victoria caught her, lifted her, and held on. You came back, Lily said into her shoulder. I told you I would. You brought cake? I brought cake. I love you, Tori. The words came out the way children say things, without calculation, without hesitation, without any understanding of the weight they carry. I love you. Simple as weather. And they hit Victoria so hard her knees almost buckled. She looked at Marcus over Lily's shoulder. Her eyes were full. He was leaning against the kitchen doorway, dish towel over his shoulder, and he was looking at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking for 3 years. Come in, he said. She carried Lily inside, set her down, looked around the apartment, the small kitchen, the couch where Marcus slept, the single bedroom with the door halfway open, the refrigerator with Lily's drawings held up by magnets. It was tiny. It was worn. The paint was peeling near the window, and the carpet had a stain by the door that wouldn't come out no matter how many times Marcus scrubbed it. It was the warmest place Victoria had ever been. It's not the Ritz, Marcus said. No, Victoria said. It's better. They ate spaghetti. Lily talked the entire time. About school, about Jalen, about the volcano that was now dead on the sidewalk, about the book she was reading about a dog who could fly. Victoria listened to every word. She ate the spaghetti from the jar like it was the finest thing she'd ever tasted. She laughed when Lily got sauce on her nose. She helped Marcus clear the plates. After dinner, Lily pulled Victoria to her room to show her the stuffed animals. Marcus stood at the sink, washing dishes, and listening to his daughter explain the complex social hierarchy of her stuffed animal collection. According to Lily, the bear was the leader, the rabbit was the troublemaker, and the giraffe was going through some stuff. Victoria's laugh carried through the apartment, and Marcus stood at the sink with his hands in soapy water and felt something break open in his chest. Not pain, not grief. Something that had been sealed shut for 3 years. Something he'd locked down and buried under double shifts and bedtime stories and the relentless forward motion of a man who couldn't afford to stop. It was his heart, opening, against his will, against his better judgment, against every promise he'd made to himself about never needing anyone again. Denise had told him once, during one of their last conversations, when the morphine was making her drift in and out, and her words came in fragments. "Don't you close up, Marcus. Don't you dare. You keep that heart open. For Lily, and for whoever comes next." He'd argued with her. "There's no next, Dee. There's just you." She'd squeezed his hand, so weak but so certain. "There's always a next, and she's going to need you to be open. Promise me." He'd promised, and then he'd broken that promise every single day for 3 years. Shutting down, closing off, building walls so high and so thick that nothing could get through. Until a woman stood up in a restaurant and walked across the room. Lily fell asleep at 8:30, mid-sentence, telling Victoria about the time Jalen ate a crayon. Victoria pulled the blanket over her, tucked the stuffed bear under her arm, and kissed her forehead. She stood in the doorway for a moment, looking at the sleeping girl, and then she pulled the door to halfway. Not all the way, halfway. Because she remembered. Marcus was on the couch when she came out. He'd made coffee. 2 mugs on the table, one with a chip in the rim, one without. He gave her the one without. "She's out," Victoria said, sitting down beside him. "She had a big day. Volcanoes, spaghetti, you." "In that order?" "Don't flatter yourself. The volcano was pretty impressive before it died." Victoria smiled. She wrapped her hands around the mug. The apartment was quiet. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. But tonight, the silence felt different. "Marcus, I need to tell you what I'm doing here." "I thought you were eating spaghetti." "I'm serious." "Okay, tell me." She set the mug down, turned to face him. "When I quit the board, my father said something. He said, 'You're throwing away everything this family has built.' And I realized, he's right. I am throwing it away. But not because I don't value it. Because I value something else more." "What?" "This." She gestured around the apartment. "This table, this couch. That little girl in there who calls me Tori and tells me about dinosaur astronauts. A man who writes his phone number on a napkin and means more by it than anyone who's ever handed me a business card." She took a breath. "I'm starting a foundation. My own. Not my father's. Mine. It's going to focus on families, single parents, working parents, people who are doing everything right and still can't get a seat at the table. I want to build something that doesn't just write checks. I want to build something that shows up. The way you show up for Lily, every single day." Marcus looked at her. "Victoria, I'm not done. I'm moving to Cleveland." "You're what?" "I'm moving to Cleveland. I found an apartment. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, east side, near the park. I signed the lease yesterday." "You signed a lease?" "I signed a lease." Victoria Ashford signed a lease on an apartment on the east side of Cleveland. "Yes." "Your father is going to have a stroke." My father is going to have to deal with it." Marcus stared at her. He searched her face for the catch, the hesitation, the moment where she'd laugh and say she was kidding. It wasn't there. She was dead serious. She was sitting on his couch, in his tiny apartment, holding a chipped coffee mug. And she was dead serious. "Why?" he asked. Not challenging, just asking. "Because 6 weeks ago, I was sitting alone in a restaurant, wearing a $50,000 necklace, eating food I couldn't taste, waiting for a father who didn't show up. And a man at the next table said 4 words and changed everything. I didn't change anything. You changed me." "Victoria, I'm not asking you for anything, Marcus. I'm not asking to move in. I'm not asking for a relationship. I'm not asking for anything except the chance to be near the 2 people who make me feel like a human being instead of a brand. That's all." Marcus put his mug down. He rubbed his face with both hands. He looked at the ceiling. He looked at the kitchen table where 3 plates had sat instead of 2. He looked at the halfway open door where his daughter was sleeping. "Denise told me something," he said, "right before she died. She told me not to close up. She told me to keep my heart open. For Lily. And for whoever came next." Victoria waited. "I broke that promise," he said. "Every day for 3 years, I broke it. I told myself I didn't need anyone. I told myself Lily and I were fine on our own. And we were. We are. But—" He stopped, swallowed. The words were stuck somewhere between his chest and his throat, and he had to physically force them out. "But I'm tired of sleeping on this couch alone. I'm tired of the quiet. I'm tired of carrying everything by myself and pretending it doesn't weigh anything." He looked at her. "And I'm tired of pretending I haven't been counting the days since you left." Victoria's breath caught. 6 weeks, Marcus said. 42 days. I counted every single one. "Marcus, you don't have to move to Cleveland for us. You don't have to quit your board or start a foundation or change your whole life. You just have to be here. That's it. Just be here." "I'm here." "Then stay." "I'm staying." He reached for her hand. She met him halfway. Their fingers locked together over the cracked coffee table, in a 1-bedroom apartment in Cleveland, while a 7-year-old slept 10 feet away with a stuffed bear under her arm and a pink beret on the nightstand. It wasn't a movie. There was no music, no dramatic lighting, no perfectly timed kiss. Just 2 people holding hands and breathing, and letting the silence be something other than lonely. "Marcus?" "Yeah?" "I'm scared." "Me too." What if I'm terrible at this? At being normal? At being, I don't know, a person who eats spaghetti from a jar and goes to soccer games and doesn't have a driver? You'll learn. What if your world and my world are too different? They were too different 6 weeks ago. Then you sat down at my table. She squeezed his hand. "What if your father never comes around?" Marcus asked. "Then he doesn't come around. I spent 32 years trying to earn his approval. I'm done. I'd rather earn Lily's." "You already have." Victoria leaned her head against his shoulder. It was the first time they'd been this close. She smelled like coffee and travel and something floral he couldn't name. He rested his chin on top of her head. "Denise would have liked you," he said quietly. "You think so?" "I know so. She would have called you Tori before you even told her she could." Victoria laughed softly. "I wish I could have met her." "You did, in a way. Everything good about Lily. Every bit of that light. That's Denise. You've been meeting her this whole time." Victoria closed her eyes. A tear slid down her cheek and landed on Marcus's sleeve. She leaned against Marcus on one side and pulled Victoria's arm around her on the other. "Tori? Yes, honey? Are you staying?" Victoria looked at Marcus. He looked at her. 3 years of grief and loneliness and silence passed between them in a single glance. And then it was gone. All of it. Replaced by something that didn't have a name yet, but would, in time, come to be called family. "Yeah," Victoria said. "I'm staying." Lily nodded, satisfied, like the matter had been settled by the highest authority in the apartment. She closed her eyes. Within 2 minutes, she was asleep again, her breathing slow and even, one hand resting on Marcus's arm, the other holding Victoria's fingers. Marcus looked down at his daughter, then at Victoria, then at the kitchen table with 3 chairs, at the photos of Denise on the fridge, at the cracked windshield of his car, barely visible through the window, parked under a streetlight that actually worked tonight. He thought about that night at La Lumiere, the hostess, the stairs, the moment when his daughter whispered, "It's okay, Daddy, we can go." And something inside him had refused to bend. 4 words. "She's with me." That's all it took. 4 words to stand his ground. 4 words to catch a stranger's attention. 4 words to start something that neither of them could have predicted. Victoria was already falling asleep on his shoulder. Her breathing was slowing to match Lily's. 2 people he loved, one for 7 years, one for 6 weeks, both asleep, both safe, both here. Marcus reached into his pocket. He pulled out the folded photo of Denise. He looked at her laughing face. He pressed his thumb against the worn edge. "I kept the promise, Dee," he whispered. "I kept it open." He put the photo back. He leaned his head against the couch. He closed his eyes. And for the first time in 3 years, when the apartment got quiet, and the refrigerator hummed, and the clock ticked its steady rhythm, Marcus Thompson didn't hear silence. He heard home. Because kindness doesn't ask for your resume, or check the color of your skin, or count the zeros in your bank account. It doesn't care about your last name, or your net worth, or whether your jacket came from Goodwill or a boutique on Fifth Avenue. It shows up in the quietest moments, in a father's steady voice, in a stranger's decision to stand, in a child who looks up at you and says, "Don't leave." It shows up in 4 words spoken without anger, without fear, without apology. "She's with me." And sometimes